In this section, we will talk about quadratic equation and its application. In section 1.1, we had a linear equation. So in general, we represent our linear equation by ax plus by equals to c, or y equals to mx plus b. So this is our linear equation. We try to solve this linear equation in our last class, okay? And in order to know whether the equation is linear or not, what we check? We check the exponent or a power of variable. So this is the variable, its power is 1. And if the power of a variable is 1, then we call it a linear equation, okay? Now in this section, we will have a quadratic equation, and in general, our quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Now what is the difference between this quadratic equation and our linear equation? So we have a linear equation here. So what is the difference? The difference is the exponent of the variable. So in quadratic equation, the exponent, the x is the variable and its exponent is 2. Okay, so if you have your any equation of this type, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, or if the variable has exponent 2, that is quadratic equation, okay? Or if you have the expression with the highest degree as a 2, then that is the quadratic equation. If the degree is 1, it is linear. If degree is 2, we call it quadratic equation, okay? And we will try to solve quadratic equation. Solving means we are trying to find the value of the variable, okay? In linear equation, whenever we solve linear equation, how many solutions we had? So if we go back to our linear equation, okay, so here we had this linear equation, and what is the number of solution we had for this equation? 1, right? In the similar way, for this linear equation, we had a solution, only one solution, 3. So we had this linear equation, the solution, the number of solution is only 1. So if you are solving linear equation, you will have one solution or no solution. In this quadratic equation, since the degree is 2, we will have at least 2 solutions. So whenever you are solving quadratic equation, make sure you have at least 2 solutions. So sometime you will have a maximum number of solution is 2, or it can be 1, or there may not be any solution, okay? But in general, whenever we are solving quadratic equation, we will have at least 2 solutions. And the very first rule to use that we need for solving this quadratic equation is a zero product rule, okay? And what it tells is that, so if we have a product of 2 numbers, so let's say we have one number, okay, and we have a second number b, and if the product of these 2 numbers is equals to 0, what can we say about these 2 numbers? So you have a 2 different number, okay, or so you have a 2 number, and when you multiply those 2 numbers, you end up getting 0. So what can you think of those 2 numbers? What would be the those 2 numbers? One number has to be at least 0, right? So you have a 2 different number, you are multiplying those 2 numbers, and if the multiplication is equals to 0, then one number, at least one number has to be 0, right? Otherwise it is not correct. So if this is the case, then what we can write here is that either our a is 0 or b is 0. Is it possible for us to have both number equals to 0? Yes, right? 0 times 0 is 0. Okay. So using this concept, we will try to solve quadratic equation, and we call that factoring method, okay? So here we have a quadratic equation 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 equals to 0. This is the quadratic equation. Okay, and this exponent 2, this term help us to identify this is quadratic equation. Okay, and we are using factoring method. Okay, does anyone need worksheet handout? Those who were not here yesterday, you might need. Anyone else? Handout for unit 1. Okay, now in this factoring method, the very first step of factoring method is we will rewrite our quadratic equation in a standard form, and the standard form is this. Okay, so this is our standard form. So you rewrite, or you make one side of the quadratic equation equals to 0. So if you have 0 in one side of your quadratic equation, we have this standard form. And the next thing you have to make sure is that you have to write every time if you have a polynomial, you have to write in the descending order of exponent of the variable. Okay, so we have variable here, we have variable here, and this is a constant. C is a constant, it does not have variable here. Now, so this variable has exponent 2, this variable has exponent 1, and this is a constant. No variable means the exponent of a variable is 0. So we have 2, 1, 0. So we have our terms in the descending order of the exponent of the variable. Okay, and if you have 0 in one side of the quadratic equation, we have a standard form. So every time if you are using factoring method, you have to rewrite your quadratic equation in a standard form. Okay, writing in a standard form means you make 0 in one side. Okay, now is our equation in a standard form? So we have 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 equals to 0. Is it in standard form? Okay, it is in standard form, right? We have right side equals to 0. So this is in standard form. And if it's standard form, we can skip this and start the next step. Next step is we factorize the left side of that equation. So we have this expression on the left. Okay, now we have to factor it completely. What method do we use to factor this trinomial 2x squared minus 7x plus 3? AC method. Okay, let's go ahead and factorize this trinomial. So our a is 2. Okay, so this is a, b is the coefficient of x, this is b, and c is the constant. Now let's multiply a and c. Our a is 2 times c is 3, which is 6. Now after that we write down every pair of factor of 6. 1 and 6 is one pair, right? And the next 2 and 3. Do we have any more pair of factor for 6? Okay, now out of these two factor, we pick one factor. Okay, we pick one factor to rewrite middle term negative 7x. Now which pair of factor? You are allowed to add those pair of factors or subtract. Okay, so we have 1, 6, 2, 3. So which one do we pick? And how do we rewrite negative 7x using 1, 6? Minus x minus 6x, right? So let's replace our negative 7x. So we have x squared, and let's replace our negative 7x by negative 1x, negative 6x, and 3 as it is equals to 0. Okay, see, we use 1 and we use 6. So we use this first pair of factor to rewrite our negative 7x. Okay, now after that we make a pair of first two term. Let's make a pair of first two term, pair of last two term. Then we look for the common factor. Now in the first pair, what do we have as a common? X. We have x as a common. Okay, so let's factor out x. And once you have the common factor, you use that common factor to divide each term. So x squared divided by x is x. Negative 1x divided by x is negative 1. Minus. Now in the last two terms, what do we have as a common? 3. Okay, so since your first term has a negative, so let's factor out a negative 3 as a common. Now you divide each term. Negative 6x divided by negative 3 is positive 2x. Okay. Now positive 3 divided by negative 3, this is negative 1. Now, okay, we don't have a common. Did we miss anything here?
2x minus x squared.
Or it should be 2x squared, not x.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, it's a 2x squared, right? Okay, so let me rewrite. Thank you. So here, so we have 2x squared, not x squared. 2x squared and 7x is minus 1x minus 6x and positive 3 equals to 0. Now we make a first two pair and last two pair. In the first two, we have x as a common. So 2x squared divided by x, that is 2x. And negative 1x divided by x is negative 1. In the last two terms, we have negative 3 as a common factor. So you divide negative 6x by negative 3, that is positive 2x. You divide positive 3 by this negative 3, we have negative 1 equals to 0. Now we have a two expression. So this is our first expression, this is our second expression, and in both of these expression 2x minus 1 is common. Okay, so let's factor out 2x minus 1. So this is common on both expression. Now the remaining we have x minus 3 equals to 0. So this is the factor. Okay, so 2x minus 1 times x minus 3 is the factor for our trinomial. Now here we have this number. Okay, so this is one number. 2x minus 1 is one number, and this is another number. In between these two numbers, what do we have? We have a product, right? So we have a product of this number and this number equals to 0. So if we have a product of two number equals to 0, then what can we rewrite? Then we either first number is equals to 0 or second number is equals to 0. So once you factor completely, you set each factor equals to 0. Write down first factor, 2x minus 1, and you set it equals to 0. You write down second factor, x minus 3, you set it equals to 0. Okay, factorize completely, and once you factor, write down each factor equals to 0. Now, what is the type of equation? What do we call this equation? Is it still quadratic? It is a linear, right? And we know how to solve linear equation. So you add 1 on both sides and you add 3 for this equation. You are solving for x. So we have 2x, negative 1, positive 1, 0 equals to 1. So in the second equation, we have this is 0, x equals to 3. Now we divide this equation by 2. And our x is equals to 1 over 2 or 3. And these two are the solution for this quadratic equation. So our equation is quadratic, so we have two solutions, 1/2 and 3. Okay, we always have at least two solutions. It's not every time two solutions. Sometimes you might get one solution. Sometimes there may not be any solution. Okay, but at least we will have two solutions for any quadratic equation. Okay, first step, you make one side 0. Second step, you factorize the other side. And once you have factor, you set each factor equals to 0 and solve the linear equation. You will have the solution. Okay, and this is our factoring method. You factorize, you set each factor equals to 0, you get the solution. Okay, so this is our factoring method. Now what does it mean if we are looking at the graph for this expression? Okay, now let's see on the graph. Do you have any question on this part? Okay, so here let me write down my equation. So we have, so let me call it is y. Okay, is my keyword missing? Y. Oh, y equals to okay, it's here, it's 2x squared to an x squared minus 7x is plus 3, right? Plus 3. Now whenever we plot a graph for a quadratic equation, we get this shape, so we call it parabola. Okay, we'll talk in detail about the graph. And what was our solution? Our solution is 1/2 and 3, right? And that 1/2 is here. Okay, so this point is 1/2 and this point is 3. So it's the same. So finding the solution of quadratic equation means we are finding a point, okay, at which the graph crosses the x-axis. So this parabola crosses the x-axis at 1/2 and it crosses the x-axis at positive 3. Okay, and this is the solution for this quadratic equation. So finding solution means you are finding a point where the graph crosses x-axis. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. So we have principle of square root. This is the next method. So if our equation is x square equals to some number, our c is any number which is greater than or equals to 0, okay, then the solution is you just write down x equals to square root of c or x equals to negative square root of c. Okay, but in order to use this method you must have an equation. Okay, you must have x square on the left, okay, and you must have equals to some positive number, okay, that c has to be greater than or equals to 0. If you have this expression, then your solution is x equals to square root of c or x equals to negative square root of c. Now let's use this method on our example. Now, is our example same as this format, x square equals to c? Are these two in a same format? Now, instead of x square on the left, what we have? We have negative 3x square plus 9. We only need to have x square on the left. So let's make it x square on the left. So how can we make x square on the left? In order to make x square on the left, we have to get rid of positive 9, right? You have a question? Yes. Okay. So how do we get rid of positive 9? We subtract 9 on both sides. So let's subtract 9 on both sides. So we have negative 3x square equals to negative 9. This is 0. Now is it same as x square? Not it. We still have negative 3 with x square. We need to get rid of negative 3. And how do we get rid of negative 3? We divide both sides. Make sure you are dividing both sides, okay? If you are multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting an equation, you have to do it on both sides. Now negative 3x square divided by 3, that is positive x square, equals to negative 9 divided by negative 3, that is positive 3. Now isn't this same as x square equals to c? We have x square on the left, we have x square on the left, we have positive number on the left, we have positive number on the left. Now once you have this, your solution for this quadratic equation is x equals to square root of whatever you have on the right side, 3, or another solution is x equals to negative of square root of 3. Okay, so these two are the solution for this quadratic equation. So you have the two solution, positive square root of 3 and negative square root of 3. Okay, this is the quadratic equation and we do have a two solution. So you use this method, okay, only when you have x square on the left, okay, when you have x square on the left and when you have a number greater equals to or greater than 0 on the right side. If you have something like, okay, let's say if you have x square equals to negative 9, now you do not use this method, okay, and the reason is we have negative number on the right side. Okay, okay, any question? All right, now let's go to the next method. Next method is completing the square method. Okay, so this is completing the square method. So let me write down quadratic equation. So that is 3x square minus 6x minus 1 equals to 0. So this is our quadratic equation. We are solving this using completing the square method. And the very first step, okay, so let me write down the each step. So step 1 is now we collect the terms with a variable in one side. Okay, so we collect terms with variable, okay, in one side and constant on the other side. Okay, this is the first step. Now, can you tell me the terms that has variable on it? So we have four terms, right? So we have a positive 3x square, negative 6x, negative 1, 0. So we have these four different terms here. Now, which term has a variable on it? So what is our variable here? X, right? So unknown value, that's x is the variable here. And which term has x? So we have, so 3x square has a x on it, negative 6x has a x on it, right? Now we collect these two terms in one side of the equation and negative 1, that is constant, and we collect that constant on the other side. Okay, now how do we take how do we get rid of negative 1 from left side? We add 1 on both side. Okay, so this makes 3x square minus 6x equals to 0 plus 1, 1. So this is your first step. Okay, you collect every terms with x on it in one side and the constant on the other side. So we have 3x square with x, we have negative 6x with x on the left side and 1 on the right side. Okay, any question on this first step? Okay, now the second step is we take the coefficient of x term, okay, or in general degree 1, okay, x term is degrees 1. So you take the coefficient of x, okay, then you divide by 2, okay, square it and add on both sides of the equation. We take the coefficient of x, we divide that coefficient by 2, we square that number after division, and we add that number on both sides of the equation. Now let's do here. So let's take the coefficient of x at first. So what is the coefficient of x in our case? Negative 6. And here you can ignore this sign, okay? So let's take the coefficient of x, which is 6. So let's take 6, okay? Then after you take the coefficient of x, you divide by 2. So you divide by 2. What do we get? 6 divided by 2, we get 3. After dividing by 2, you square it. So you square 3. Okay, it's 9. Now do not find that is square. Then you add this number on both sides of the equation. So you are adding 3 square on both sides. Okay, just let me have a small gap here. So we took 6 divided by 2. We had a 3. We square it. Now you are adding 3 square on both sides. So you are adding 3 square on both sides of the equation. So this is how we find what number we add on both sides of the equation. You take the coefficient of x, divide by 2, square it, and you add that squared number on a both side of the equation. Now let me write down the equation. So our equation looks like 3x square negative 6x. We are adding 3 square, so we are adding 3 square on a both side. 1 plus 3 square. So we added 3 square. You do not add 3 square every time, okay? It depends on the coefficient of x. If the coefficient of x is 8, what number do we add on a both side? You divide by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. You square it. 4 is square. You are adding 4 square on a both side. Okay. If the coefficient of x is 2, then you divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You square it. 1 is square. You are adding 1 square on a both side. Okay. So it's not that we are adding 3 square every time. It depends on the coefficient of x. Okay. This is our step 2. Okay. Now in step 3, okay, so let me write down here the equation one more time. So we have 3x square minus 6x plus 3, sorry, not 3 square, right? Okay. Now here, I did miss one step here. Okay, now that's what I realized. Okay. I think we need to go back here. So before step 2, there is one more thing. That's what I missed here. Okay, let me add that step 2. Okay, so this will be our step 3. So this is our step 3. And step 2, okay, step 2. Now once we have a step 2, our step 3 will change. So in step 2, we make the coefficient of square term equals to 1. Okay, that is our step 2. So making coefficient of square term of x square equals to 1. Okay, so this is our step 2. So let me erase step 3 first. Okay, so let me get rid, okay, so let me erase this. So before, this is our step 3. Okay, so in step 2, we make the coefficient of square term equals to 1. What is the coefficient of square term for our equation? 3. Now we have to make that 3 equals to 1. How do we make 3 equals to 1? What do we need to do? Do we add, multiply, divide? How can we make this 3 equals to 1? So to make this 3 equals to 1, we divide each term by 3. So you divide each term, okay? Make sure you are dividing each term. So this is our second step. So 3x square divided by 3, that is x square. Negative 6x divided by 3, that is negative 2x equals to 1 over 3. So before you start third step, we have a second step. In that second step, we make the coefficient of square term 1. Now we go to the step 3, yes. So in step 3, you take the coefficient of x. Now our coefficient of x is 2, okay. So we take the coefficient of x, divide by 2, we get 1, you square it, and you are adding 1 square on both sides. So you are adding 1 square on both sides. It was not 3 square, okay, sorry, this is 1 square, not cube. Okay, so this makes our equation. So we have our equation as x square minus 2x, x square minus 2x. We added 1 square on both sides. We have 1 over 3 plus 1 square. So this is our equation. Okay. Any question? We take the constant on the right side, first step. Second step, we make the coefficient of square term 1 by dividing by its coefficient. In the third step, we take the coefficient of x, divide by 2, square it, and add on both sides. Okay, now let's go to the next step, step 4. Okay, so here, let me correct this. So we have x square negative 2x positive 1 square equals to 1 over 3 plus 1 square. Okay, now step 4. Now in step 4, okay, so we have this trinomial on the left side. Okay, we rewrite this trinomial as a square of a binomial. Okay, so we rewrite trinomial as a square of binomial. So we have the trinomial on the left side, and we have to rewrite this trinomial as a square of a binomial. You will have this question on your first exam and on your final, like solving the quadratic equation using a completing square method. Okay, and we'll practice more example. I know this is not easy, but do not worry. Okay, so now let's rewrite our trinomial on the left side as a square of binomial. And for that, so what we do to rewrite, you take x from this square term. Do not take square. Okay, you take x, you take 1 from this last square term. Do not take square. Okay, you take the sign of middle term, so we have negative, so you take sign of middle term here, then you square this binomial. So we take this x from here. Okay, we take this 1 from this last square term, and this sign is sign of middle term, and once you have two terms you square it. Okay, and this trinomial, so this trinomial is same as this square of binomial. They are exactly same. The only difference is that they are in a different form. Okay, now we can always check, like if you find x minus 1 square, we always get x square minus 2x plus 1. So this is x minus 1 times x minus 1. So if we use x times x, x square, x times negative 1, negative x, negative 1 times x, negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1. This is x square minus 2x plus 1. So which is same as this one. Okay, so the only difference is that they are in a different form, but this trinomial is same as this square of a binomial. Okay, so this is our fourth step, rewriting the trinomial as a square of a binomial. Now on the left side we have a two number, we can simplify. So this is 1/3 plus 1. How do we add these two number? We have a fraction, we need to make denominators 3, right? So let's multiply by 3 in the numerator and 3 in the denominator. So this is 1/3 plus 3 times 1, 3 divided by 3, and this is 4 over 3. So our equation looks like now x minus 1 equals to 4 over 3. Okay, any question up to here? Now we use our principle of square root. Okay, next step is we get rid of this square. Okay, or using principle of square root, that is our step 5. So in step 5 we use principle of square root. Okay, and according to that rule we get rid of square. Okay, so you won't have a square on the left and you will end up getting a square root on the other side. So write down whatever you have inside the parenthesis, x minus 1. Okay, no more square on the left. Now on the right side you will get positive square root of 4 over 3 and negative square root 4 over 3. Okay, like we had positive root 3 and negative root 3 as our solution in our previous example. So on the when you get rid of a square from left side, you get positive root 3. So this is positive root 3, positive root, and you get negative root. Okay, and we can just rewrite, we can combine these two as a, just rewrite on positive negative together, then square root 4 over 3. Okay, so this is same, you can write separately like positive and negative, or you can combine using plus negative and write a single number. Okay, so we have x minus 1 on the left side. Okay, now do not forget we are solving this equation. Solving means we are making our x by itself. Okay, x has -1 on it, so let's get rid of -1. For that we add 1 on both sides. So we have x equals to, this is 0, positive, negative. We know what is the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2, divided by square root of 3 is square root of 3, and we are adding 1. We are adding 1. So this is the solution for the quadratic equation. Okay, now do you see a 2 solution here? This, we are solving quadratic equation, we must have at least 2 solutions. Do you see 2 solution here? So first solution is you take this positive sign. Okay, you get, so positive 2 over root 3 plus 1. So this is one solution. Okay, now you can always ignore positive sign, we do not need to write every time. The next solution is you take negative sign, so that is negative 2 over root 3 plus 1. So this is our second solution. Okay, so these two are the solution for this quadratic equation. Okay, any question? Okay, the next type is using quadratic formula, and you all have seen this formula, right? You have seen, and you can get this formula using this completing square method. Okay, so if you use completing square method for this quadratic equation, this is the final answer we get. Okay, so we would not derive this formula, but this is the quadratic formula that you can use to solve the quadratic equation. So we have this quadratic equation, and let's solve this by using quadratic formula. Okay, now in order to use quadratic formula, you must rewrite your quadratic equation in a standard form. So the first step is you write in a standard form. Standard form means you make your right side equals to 0. Okay, then once you have your quadratic equation in standard form, you have to find what is a, what is b, what is c. Okay, now in our case, what is a? So a is the coefficient of a square term. So what do we have as a coefficient of a square term? So this is our square term, its coefficient is -4. So a is -4. Coefficient of x is b, and the coefficient of x is 3. So b is 3. B is 3. C is a constant, and so 1/2 is a constant. C is 1/2. Make sure you have 0 in one side, then that is your standard equation. After that you have to find a, b, c, and once you have a, b, c, you substitute in this formula. This formula will be given to you. So our formula is x equals to, since the variable is x, so we have x equals to -b plus minus b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now let's substitute. So we have negative as it is. B is 3. 3 plus minus square root b square, our b is 3, so 3 square minus 4 times a. A is -4. Make sure to have parenthesis, -4 times c. C is 1/2. So whenever you have negative number or more than one terms, make sure to use parenthesis. Okay, divided by 2 times a. 2 times our a is -4. Now let's simplify here. So we have -3 as it is, positive, negative, square root. What is 3 square? 9, right? Now, negative 4 times negative 4. We are multiplying here, okay? Negative 4 times negative 4. That is positive 16 times 1/2 is 8, okay? Positive 8. So, positive 8 divided by 2 times negative 4. That is negative 8. Now, yes.
Half,
I'm sorry?
half.
So here, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And positive 16 times 1/2 is positive 8. Okay? So I skipped that and multiplied all these together. Now we have negative 3 as it is, positive negative, square root 9 plus 8, 17 divided by negative 8. We do not have a whole number for a square root of 17, so you can keep this as it is. Now let's write down two solution. To write down two solution, you take positive first. Okay, everything remains same. So negative 3 as it is. Instead of this plus or minus, you take positive first. Then root 17 as it is divided by negative 8. This is our first solution. Second solution, instead of positive, you take negative. Okay, instead of positive, you take negative. And everything remains same. So negative 3, negative square root of 17 divided by negative 8. So these two are the solution for this quadratic equation. So you take positive first, or you can take negative first, okay? But you are taking positive and negative one by one, and everything other remains same. So this is how we can solve the quadratic equation using quadratic form.